We're back. I'm excited to be back. Like I said, I had FOMO. I was missing out. I was missing you guys, all of you guys. So appreciate everyone hanging out and listening to us. And as always, have to remind you, if you want to know anything about free agency, we've got our grades up at fantasylife.com. If you need to check out anything for the NFL draft, all those articles 100% free. I think we gotta get and hit on the Stefon Diggs news, right? Because he got a 3-year, $69 million deal, 26 million guaranteed, gonna be Drake Maye's new weapon with the New England Patriots. I thought he would sign a little bit sooner than he did, but that was just a couple days ago. So I don't know, Adam. When I was looking at this, first of all, I saw reactions to the money and people just not really liking the money. And I said, well, okay, they had nearly $130 million in cap space. They had the money to do this. And when you look at it, contract worth $23 million per year, it's the same neighborhood as guys like Terry McLaurin, Calvin Ridley, Michael Pittman Jr. So I don't think it was hard to see why they did this. And I don't think New England is done getting weapons for Drake Maye. But I didn't hate this move. The teams that needed to get wide receiver help really were the Patriots. We're still waiting on the Carolina Panthers, who need a little bit more help. But I don't know. The Patriots wide receivers and tight ends, they ranked 31st in average open score last season. So separation when we look at these guys did not come easy. Stefon Diggs comes in there. And I think the biggest question, Adam, is he's coming off the non-contact ACL injury that took him out in I believe it was week 7 or week 8. And so he's getting older. He's 31 years old right now. So those are two things kind of going up against him. What did you think of this move?
Yeah, look, like you said, they had a lot of money to spend, and this wasn't the greatest market for wide receivers, especially when T. Higgins stayed with Cincinnati. So they needed to do something, and that's why they spent that much money on Diggs. I mean, 26 million guaranteed. Obviously, he's not the game-breaking receiver that he was a couple years ago, and it doesn't help coming off the torn ACL, but they
Mhm.
needed to get Drake May some help. You mentioned just the lack of targets in this offense last year was pretty bad. And considering that, I thought Drake May had a solid rookie year. So you bring in Diggs, you hope that he's healthy. The reports are he's ahead of schedule in his return. Now, he was solid with the Texans in terms of racking up the receptions. There weren't many big plays. The yards per target were down. It was a lot of short passes, and maybe a product of that was the Bobby Slowick offense and also the offensive line for the Texans. But Diggs should be able to rack up the receptions, and clearly, this is the best weapon that Drake May has had. He only had 1 year, but they didn't have much at all. I mean, it was Demario Douglas as their leading
Yeah.
receiver last year with 66 receptions in 17 games, just 3 touchdowns. So they just didn't really have anyone. So you in a PPR league, Diggs is going to rack up the receptions. I don't expect many touchdowns, and also the yards will be the issue, but they needed to do something, and this was the first step, and we'll see what lies ahead potentially in the draft as well.
Yeah, I don't think they're done. I don't think that means that they're going to go out and the best receiver in this draft is Tedero McMillan. So I don't necessarily think that that means that they're going to go out and get him. But with Stephon Diggs specifically too, I'm curious if you think that he's going to continue putting up numbers in that short intermediate part of the field, because you just talked about Demario Douglas and that was kind of his specialty there. But when you look at it last season, his air yards per target 8.84 last season. That was down from 10.19 in 2023, final season with Buffalo. And then in his final season with the Minnesota Vikings, his average air yards per target 14.73. So it was short and outside with the Houston Texans. 18.6% of his routes were there per ESPN research, which was a career high. You think he keeps that role? Or I mean, he's come out and said like, oh, I can move the chains, I can be a field stretcher, but I think he's going to stay in that kind of role that we saw him in last year, don't you?
Yeah, I think so too. I just don't see many deep passes to him. I think
Yeah.
he is going to be that reliable guy underneath, especially when they have a third and short critical play. That's where Diggs' role is going to be. So, yeah, I just don't see the days of huge chunk yardage plays for him anymore. I think he's just that underneath possession type of receiver, especially at his age and coming off the torn ACL. We saw it last year. It was working really well.
Yeah.
If you had Diggs, you were pretty happy with the start to his season because he was just racking up the receptions. He had 47 receptions in 8 games. I mean, it was just like a minimum of 5 receptions like every game. So You hope that that's the role that he gets in New England uh, for fantasy purposes. Like you didn't see a lot of big yardage games. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
He had three games over 80 yards, but you also saw a lot of 6 for 33, 5 for 23. So in a PPR, you will take that. You're not going to be upset, uh, but you're going to need to see maybe some more touchdowns. He had three touchdowns last
Yeah, I don't know. He was on pace last year when we were talking about him. Like he really looked like he was going to have a solid finish. Not to the extent that we were talking about, let's say Chris Godwin before he was
year.
injured, but his connection with CJ Stroud seemed like it was pretty solid. So, like you said, he lined up in the slot 43% of the time. Super big increase though from 27% of the time with the Buffalo Bills. So that was a good use. That was good use of Stefon Diggs. So I like it. And like you said, for Drake May, I mean, he was accurate. He had like accurate throw rate, 66.5%, fourth highest mark in the league. And we saw him, kind of for fantasy football when we looked at Drake May, we said, okay, well, there's potential there because he was pretty good with his legs as well. Averaged 7.8 yards per carry, 54 attempts. So I don't know, there's potential there. This will be to me when I look at this, Adam, too, especially if we talk best ball or even probably redraft, like these are going to be cheaper stacks that you can go out and get because not everyone's targeting Drake May right now. Not everyone's going to target Stefon Diggs. He's going off the board right now, wide receiver 55. So that's
Yeah,
around Rashad.
that's
That's
but that
Rashad
how
Bateman
recent is that data though?
right now
Because
today.
but how many
Well, you're
drafts
right.
does it
You're right.
take?
It's probably going to take a week or two. Where do you think
Yeah,
he jumps up? 40?
I probably in the 40s. Like the
Yeah.
55, I'm thinking is because he was unsigned and they were just waiting for a landing spot. Either way, it's just I think the ceiling is low for him.
Mhm.
That's the only issue. Even like what's his best ball week, right? If he's not going to
Yeah.
score a lot of touchdowns, that's the issue for best ball.
Are you drafting him in redraft or no?
I'm gonna say no right now. Would be my guess because I'm looking for more ceiling in that range. I'm interested to see what his ADP will be. Maybe he's a maybe he breaks into the wide receiver three. Maybe he's
Mhm.
36, but I'd probably put him more in the 40s.
Yeah, like Jacoby. I'm seeing Jacoby Myers, Luther Burden, Khalil Shakir, Brandon Ayuk range. Is that still too? Is that
Yeah,
too rich?
I think it's too rich to put him
Okay.
there.
You could just say no, I'm not drafting him. You just don't you I just yeah, I think I'll draft him a few times more in best ball though because I never want, in redraft it's so hard to figure out, some of those flex plays. And if you go wide receiver heavy early, which we're going to talk about here with some just positional rankings and what we like in best ball specifically and in redraft, but it's sometimes hard to figure out what your flex plays are going to be. So Stephon Diggs though gets a new home, gets a new guy in Drake May, and thank goodness Drake May gets some weapons. Now let's do it for Bryce Young. Bryce Young next, maybe in the draft. The next piece of news that I definitely wanted to hit was that I was gone when Jameis Winston signed with the Giants, and I was so exciting at him. It was like, yes, this is it. Malik Nabers is going to get fed. Everything's going to be great. And then a few days later, it is also Russell Wilson signing with the New York Giants, which I don't know. What was your initial reaction? Because to me, I thought, why? Why would you do that? Especially, I still think they go out and get someone in the NFL draft because I don't know if you can say, well, we're gonna win and make it to the playoffs with Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston. Not to say that you're gonna do that with a rookie quarterback, but two quarterbacks and Russell Wilson signed the 1 year, $21 million deal, 10.5 million guaranteed, which makes me believe that he's going to be the starter. But what did you think here?
Yeah, I was a little surprised by it as well. Again, it's only 1 year deal and there's a lot of incentives in there. I think with the Giants though, it's just they have, the front office that really knows that they need to win now. If they don't, they're gone. So I think that's part of the factor here. The problem too is there's still a lot of holes on this team and they have a really
Mhm.
difficult schedule. So I think a lot of us wanted to see Winston say, "Hey, make him the bridge quarterback, give him the shot." And again, a lot comes down to do they draft a quarterback here, especially at 3? If Shador Sanders is there, do they take him? And then if that happens, how do you sit him? You think Deion Sanders
Yeah.
is gonna sit there quietly as Sanders is on the bench?
Hey, Deion Sanders got his big deal this week
Yeah.
too, so he's fine. He's totally fine. But I just don't. I agree. I don't think you think Shador Sanders is going to be there.
Uh, It sounds like maybe he won't be. I don't know.
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
everything kind of changes. There's a lot of questions in this draft. Like
There
it kind of
are.
changes every day. Like all these reports of who's going to go where.
Yeah, I don't I look at it and it just seems like it seems like Sanders might, because Cam Ward feels like the consensus QB1 across a lot of people's boards, right? If you read Thor Nystrom's articles, he has Shador Sanders as his QB1, but those two flip. Like those are the two best quarterbacks in this draft, and then there is a significant teardrop to the Jackson Darts of the world and everyone else. So Cam Ward going to the Tennessee Titans, then you think Cleveland really doesn't have a quarterback right now. So it feels to me, Adam, that they go out and get Shador Sanders, and then maybe the Giants get the best player available, which would be probably in that scenario Travis Hunter. So I don't know. I was confused about it as well, and I just but I will say those two compared to the Tommy DeVitos of the world from last season have to be somewhat of an upgrade, right? So for
Yeah.
Malik Nabers, people, I don't think we need to freak out for football. You're still drafting Malik Nabers as that wide receiver one. I wrote the other day that he's quarterback proof, because look at the four guys. I think it was four last season that were thrown to him. It was Drew Lock, Daniel Jones, DeVito, and then Tim Boyle. So if you can survive that, and then you get Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston into the quarterback room, I think those are upgrades from those other four. Then you're still drafting him as a wide receiver one. I think point blank.
Yeah, I don't think there's any need to be worried about neighbors at this point. We saw him with multiple quarterbacks last year, still put up numbers. There was a little bit of a lull there with the touchdowns, and that was the only thing that, held him back. He still had a great year, but
Yeah.
there was a period from like week 4 on where there weren't many touchdowns, and he got a few late. But especially if they are going to bring in Travis Hunter too, then that would just make it, yeah, an even better combination. And maybe the Giants looked at it and said, "Look, we don't love these quarterbacks. Let's get two veteran quarterbacks, draft potentially Hunter, and then go make the move for the quarterback next season in the draft."
They're they have to win now, though, don't you think? That's the
They do,
hottest
but
seat coming into the seat. That's what's confusing. It's like Brian Dable, I don't know, do they make it to next season if they're not winning with these two quarterbacks now?
they're probably not going to win either way, though. That's
That's
the
true.
problem. I just don't see it. They don't have enough. So I think it didn't matter whatever way they went, and because they weren't getting a Jaden Daniels type quarterback to come in and
No,
turn them around. So
no.
I don't see them winning either way.
Perfect. Well, just feed Malik Neighbors. I feel like that's all we can
That's what
say
we
is like
want.
just feed Malik Neighbors and whoever else comes in there. If it's Travis Hunter or whoever else, like just feed him, and let's just make sure that we're drafting him like we should be. Because Travis Hunter, the other thing too is like people projecting him as a wide receiver or a cornerback. Which one is he going to play more at? So that's going to be big for fantasy football and best ball when you're drafting right now. So that's something to watch out for too. But I agree with you. Don't worry. Don't worry about Malik Neighbors. He's still going to get fed with those two quarterbacks. All right. We're going to continue on here again. FantasyLife.com. That mock draft is live, 100% free. So make sure you go and check that out. And anything for the NFL draft really is all right there. We've got the NFL draft, though, Adam, less than a month away. And you and I wrote out our favorite landing spots, our favorite predictions for fantasy football, where we think some of these guys should go. We're going to give you those coming up next. This is Fantasy Life right here. Kendall Valenzuela, Adam Ronis with you. It might be the off season, but I don't know, Adam. We've got a ton of things to talk about, and a new episode of White Lotus. We've got 2 episodes left, and I started and binged Severance. I'm only like a few episodes out from the finale.
Okay.
Have you watched that?
Yeah, I've been watching
Severance?
Severance.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. Now, do I get things that are going on sometimes? No. But that's like half the fun, right? I'm okay with that.
That's true. With the White Lotus, are you pleased? Because the last time we
I am
spoke, you were
pleased.
not
Yes.
happy with
No,
the
I was good.
first.
I was good. I reflected and I was impatient. And I looked back at some of the other episodes in the seasons and I said, "You know what? This is how they always go." But it started off, I won't spoil it for anyone, but it started off like, okay, what's going to be the ending? Like who is that going to be? XYZ. And I just need a little bit of patience, Adam. So it should all come together. We got 2 episodes left. I'm excited.
That's the disappointing. Like 8 episodes.
I
Like
know.
these seasons are so short for this show. I don't understand it.
But they already announced that they're ready for the 4th season. So
Okay.
we get another, I don't know where that could be. It has
I
to be
was gonna
somewhere like
say
snowy,
if they
right? Because we've
announced it.
done we've done resort stuff for a while. Maybe they go snow.
I
Someone
don't
said
know.
cruises, and I said, "You know
Oh,
what? No.
why
These
not?
rich I don't know. I don't are these uber, million billionaires gonna be on cruises? No."
Well, maybe it could be an exclusive
Oh, an
cruise just for
exclusive
people with a
cruise.
lot of money.
Ooh, okay, I like it. I like it. So yeah, look at us. Just not just NFL stuff to talk about. We're talking about shows here too. So I guess we can talk about the NFL draft though, because that is less than a month away. You and I wrote the newsletter for Friday. So everyone can go and check those out. Fantasylife.com, 100% free to sign up for those. But you and I did, favorite landing spots for some of these incoming rookies. And guys, you're already going to know a lot of these guys, specifically though Ashton Jeanty. We can start there because he feels like the easiest one. He is already, I mean, he's going to be expensive in your drafts, so don't get shocked when you look at Ashton Jeanty and you say, oh wait, he's going where, because he's just going to be really sought after. We did a dynasty talk, Thor and I did, and so he's obviously the 101 that you want to go and get. But you and I had him both at the same spot, looking at the Las Vegas Raiders. It feels, I don't know, it feels too easy, Adam, but sometimes you don't need to overthink things. The Raiders have the 6th overall pick, and we've seen Pete Carroll build around a backfield before. And that's why I think that Ashton Jeanty going over to the Las Vegas Raiders just kind of makes some sense. And they have no one in that backfield right now either.
Yeah, they absolutely need a running back. And, you don't see running backs go early in drafts anymore. It's
No.
been 2 first round running backs in the last 3 years. But when you get a special talent like Genty, he's going to go early. So Vegas fits as one of the first teams there that could use a running back. And like you said, with Pete Carroll there, Chip Kelly, it makes sense for them to take him. And
Yeah.
to me, wherever Genty goes, I mean, yes, are there more ideal landing spots for him? Sure, but on any team, he's going to come in and be a 3 down back. So as long as the offensive line is solid, he's going to be a stud anywhere. So you can make a case for several teams. Look, it's really coming down to 3 teams when you look at it, right? And it's Vegas, the Bears, and the Cowboys,
Yep.
right? All of them in the top 12 who could use running backs. I think the Cowboys have a lot of needs, and more than likely, though, at this point, Genty will probably be gone. I mean, the Bears, I think the Bears probably would take him, right? If he
If
was
he was
available.
there, yeah.
Yeah. Don't you
I
think?
would I agree. I just don't, yeah, but I just don't think he's gonna be there. I don't know if Pete can I don't know if Pete can pass it up with the chance of doing, like, a little Marshawn Lynch role or whatever. Like, I just don't think he'd be able to look at that and pass that up. But I will say, for the Cowboys, even, we're going to talk about their, a landing spot for them. It's not bad. Like, if the Bears don't get Genty, if the Cowboys don't get Genty, this is such a deep running back class that it's kind of okay. Like, we can talk through some of the other running backs that we're seeing in this draft, and the next one really is, I mean, the Cowboys coming up next. But I think if they don't get Genty, that while they do need a running back, that because this class is so deep, you still need some help over there. It can't just be all CeeDee Lamb again. We can't do this whole thing where, yeah, the Cowboys are going to win. Dak Prescott's good. CeeDee Lamb's great for fantasy football. Why not go out and get Tedero McMillan, who, again, this wide receiver class, total opposite. There's good players at the top, but then it just kind of goes downhill from there. Those first 2 or 3 guys, and then there's just a significant teardrop where total opposite of with the running backs with these rookies. So I don't know. When I look at the Cowboys, Adam, and I think we had the same one, but I said, even though they need a Genty, if Genty's there, they're going to take him. But I think that they get Tedero McMillan, wide receiver help for Dak Prescott, and I don't hate it.
Yeah, look, it makes sense. They desperately need someone opposite CeeDee Lamb, and this has been an ongoing theme. And we know Brandon Cooks has gone off to the Saints, and you need weapons for Dak Prescott. I've always said this. There are certain quarterbacks that make the players around them better. Patrick Mahomes is the perfect example. We saw him win a Super Bowl a couple years ago with no wide receivers. But there are other quarterbacks, they need everything to be almost perfect around them. And they need wide receivers and tight ends to help them make plays. And I think Dak Prescott is that quarterback, and you're just not giving him enough right now. So we've seen Dak. He can put up numbers and he can win games. Obviously, the problem for Dallas is just winning in the postseason. But if Lamb will still put up numbers, but opposing defenses can really focus on him and make things more difficult. And when that happens, where else are you going to go? I mean, yeah, Jake
Yeah.
Ferguson's nice, but he's not breaking big plays. So they need that big receiver opposite CeeDee Lamb. And in this case, McMillan fits the build. So, but the Cowboys always surprise in the draft. When you think they're going to do something, they
You
go
mean
in a
they do
different
something
direction.
dumb?
Yeah. No, for the most part, over the
No,
years,
it's been okay.
they've drafted pretty well. I mean, last year was just mind-boggling though because we all knew they needed a running back, and they kept passing and passing when there was a lot of running backs on the board. In the end, it took them forever, but Rico Dowdle did turn in to a serviceable running back, and then of course they let him go and pay the exact same money to Javonte Williams, who has not looked good. So yeah, they make some mind-boggling decisions. So everyone is like penciling in an offensive player, a skill position player to Dallas. I could see them going offensive line, defensive line. They just they're a wild card here. But in terms of McMillan, he makes sense for Dallas
Yes.
because they need someone else opposite CeeDee Lamb.
No, 1,000%. And like you said, I mean, team needs what number one, because we're obviously fantasy focused. So we're being a little bit biased here. But number one, would your team need be offensive line? And then would it go down to running back, then wide receiver? Or would it be because defensive line too, you need a little bit of help there too.
Yeah, I mean, offensive line for sure. They have always been known as one of the better offensive lines in the league, but they've taken some hits, and we saw that it wasn't the same offensive line. Everyone assumes, oh, Cowboys, yeah, put a running back there, but this is not the same offensive line. And you mentioned earlier too, there's more running backs that you can get later in the draft. Sure, do we? Everyone wants an Ashton Jeanty, but there's also a cost for it as well. So they can get a running back later in the draft. That's probably my guess what they're going to do. They cannot go into the season with Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders. I mean, but I guess they could
No.
because
Oh my,
they are crazy. And we saw it last
that would
year.
be insane.
It
And I
really
listen,
would.
I want to love Javonte Williams and like tell
We all
myself
do.
this story that this is going to be great, but the injuries have just been so you and I talk about it all the time. Like we have to follow the injuries. If there's no examples, if there's no history of it, then we can kind of just be a little bit more optimistic. But with Javonte Williams and the injuries and what he hasn't been able to do, which has been so sad because we know it's all there. Like the talent when he was coming out and he was a rookie, it was just like everything was there. But for Javonte Williams, unless he's the only one back there, then I guess Adam, I'll draft him a little bit. But even then, it's a little concerning. I want to
Look,
like it, but it's
he
just
he couldn't do it in a Sean Payton offense, and he was raving about playing for Sean Payton. And if he couldn't get it done there, and there was no one really pushing him in Denver. Like he
no.
had every opportunity to seize that backfield, and he just couldn't do it. He was fine in the passing game, but nothing on the ground. And it's just he hasn't been the same. I think we were all excited when he came out, expecting big things from him, and sometimes injuries can really take a lot away from a player, and we're seeing it with Javonte Williams. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm rooting for him. Like I hope that it works out, but the likelihood is it's not based on what we've seen.
Yeah. Again, super disappointing. I want to do a couple more names here because I do want to talk some of these rookie tight ends because we've mentioned, hey, this running back class is really deep. And honestly, Adam, we could be talking now. It could be the third year in a row where we get a Sam Laporta, a Brock Bowers kind of performance from one of these two tight ends. Then we can go through some of the other ones here. But we've got more landing spots that I want to talk about. So we're gonna do that coming up next. And Valenzuela, Adam Ronis with you today, getting you ready for everything that you need to know for the NFL draft. We're going to continue going through some of our favorite landing spots for these rookies. And then when are you going to your first baseball game? I just asked you this. Opening day?
Friday, yes.
Oh, I'm jealous. And
Why? You've
I've looked
already
at
been to two in Japan, and you're
well,
jealous of
no, no, no,
me.
no. I didn't. No, no, no. I just, I'm excited for you. It'll be so fun. And let me just say this: I looked this up before this show today because we haven't talked about the new foods at the ballpark and the craziest ones that you could eat. I
Oh
will
boy.
say, let me just give you one. Let me just give you one, and then we'll move on.
Okay.
Toronto Blue Jays. Have you seen this one?
I don't think so, but just
Cotton candy fries. Cotton candy French
oh,
fries.
I think I did see. I saw something crazy with cotton candy,
It looks
and
like it has a blue syrup on it and then cotton
no,
candy all on top. I
no,
will say this might be
you would
one that
eat it.
no. I don't know what the blue dipping sauce is. What do you
What
think
is
that
the
is?
infatuation with cotton candy and all types of
I don't
food?
know. Well, oh, the cotton candy burrito is something that we have to do this season. We have to go to a game. I
Ugh.
know. Come on. I don't
I
know if I'd do this one. I will be totally honest with you. With
I
a
have
drizzle, cotton candy sits atop fries that have been drizzled with some sort of blue sauce.
no. I mean, come on.
That's a description.
It sounds like way too much sugar. That's
Well,
the
but
one
then you're
thing.
getting some potato. You're
I
fine.
I don't like very sweet things anymore. I don't know if it's
I know
as you
you
get
do.
older, but like I put less sugar in my coffee each time. I just don't like a lot. I had some cake yesterday. It was too sweet.
Ooh, oh
It was
my
too sweet.
gosh.
Yeah.
You're
No, but
I
it's
know.
just I don't like it when it
I know. You don't like candy. You don't like
I
sweet
did I
things.
do like candy. I love Reese's peanut butter cups. Like
Oh,
that's
that's true.
something when they're around me, forget it. They're gone. I devour them. That's why I try not to have them in the vicinity because then I'm just going to eat all of them. Uh but I have seen those some new foods at the
I
ballpark, City
know.
Field too, a lot.
Ooh.
And I have seen City Field's like voted like the best ballpark food like 2 or 3 years in a
Ooh.
row.
I know I wanted you to get that cookie bucket during the
Now,
playoffs last season. That
yeah, they
looked
still
good.
have that. It's like 20
Oh,
cookies in a bucket. That
heck yeah.
was
And then you could
something
just
they
share with
talked
the
about.
people around you. That'd be so fun.
That is
I don't
true
know
because
what I
I'm
don't know
not
what the
eating 20
blue
cookies.
No, 20 cookies is too much. I don't know what the blue theme is, but the Mariners have a corn dog that's called the what up corn dog, but it's blue. So the outside is coated in something blue, spicy honey battered with a spicy blue crunch.
Well, Seattle has to do that because
Stop.
the baseball team is just not going to
Stop. Don't
be
do this right
entertaining.
now.
So you need the food. So if you're not going to have an offense that
Stop. Don't
puts
get me
up 2
started.
runs, then you need to
Ugh.
have food to counteract that. So
One for 10 and with runners in scoring position last night, by the way. It was brutal. So
it's
don't even get yeah, I know
only
what you're
3
saying.
games.
I know what you're saying to get me to get everything stirred up. And I'm not gonna take the bait here. I'm gonna wait till July to start really getting mad at them. And that's when it's gonna happen. So
You
okay.
know the one thing no, I'm glad you brought this up cuz
Okay.
I need to try new food at Citi Field cuz they have won the best stadium food award for 3
What?
straight years.
See, that's what I said you need to go there, but you don't like walking around
No,
you don't like walking around.
no. First of all, I love walking around. Sometimes I park a mile from the stadium and walk to get my steps in. I
Okay.
just don't like missing the game to get food. Like my goal is to watch baseball. It's not to eat. So if I
Hmm.
get there early enough, sure, then I don't mind walking around looking for food. But during the game, no. Like they have a Shake Shack there and the line is
Yum.
long. If someone is with me and they say, "Hey, I'm gonna go wait in line. Do you want anything?" Sure, bring me back a burger and fries. But I'm not sitting in a line for 45 minutes. Like that's and now with these games and the pitch clocks, these
Oh,
games
they're
are two
fast.
hours 45 minutes.
Yep.
So if you spend 45 minutes in line to get food, you're missing almost half the game. So no, I'm a baseball junkie. I want to watch the game. I want
Ooh.
good food? Sure, but it's not my primary thing when going to a baseball game.
I'm looking at your food now, and you've got good food.
Yeah,
You've got an ultimate grilled cheese this year. Ooh, it looks
well,
really good.
ultimate grilled cheese at a baseball
Stop.
game?
What are you
Come on, give me
talking
something
about?
better.
What are you talking about? A grilled cheese is good anytime.
No,
Starbucks grilled cheese, by the way, 10 out
really?
of 10. Oh,
Never had it.
oh, I tell people all the time. I turn people on. I say you need to go to Starbucks, and if you're hungry, it's because people
So,
don't get it because it's in that front section where there's like all the snacks and stuff. It's in
so
the cold
wait,
section.
hold on a
What?
second. How is their grilled cheese different? Like, what separates a
It's
good
just so
grilled cheese?
good. It's just so can you just try just go and get it. Just go and get one day and you'll say, "Oh yeah, this is really good."
Okay,
What are we doing? We need to talk football.
we do, but yeah,
We
we're
need to talk
also
rugby.
trying to help people when
Go to
when
the
they're out.
stadium and get their food. Yeah, you need to try some different food when you go there.
I
So,
do,
what is
yeah.
it, Friday?
Friday, yeah.
I say you get the cookie bucket and then one of these, I don't know. This doll looks really good though. You've got meatballs. That sounds delicious. Ooh,
That does. Yeah,
a
I have to do some
burger.
research before I go get there
Oh,
early and get
Korean fried
something good.
chicken. Yum. Yeah, you need to figure it
Wait,
out.
what
And
was
then
the chicken?
Korean fried chicken with kimchi
Yeah,
fried rice.
that sounds
Ooh,
pretty good.
that sounds good. All right. Yeah, they're voted number one. So you have to go try it for us. For all the people that can't. What were we talking about? NFL rookies. Incoming rookies and our favorite landing spots for them. All right, we went through a few, right? We already said Tedero McMillan going to the Cowboys, Ashton Jeanty going 6th overall to the Las Vegas Raiders. Tyler Warren, this one feels like Adam. I don't even think it's a secret anymore because everyone, I feel like every mock that I look at has Tyler Warren going to the Colts. But then when you look deeper into it, the Colts, I mean, for everything that's going on, because I guess they're going to have a quarterback competition this year with Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson, which is fine. But the Colts last season, second fewest receiving yards from tight ends of any team with 467. And I will say this too, Adam, they just need someone that's going to help them win right away. They looking back at some of their last, first round picks, first what last 5, 6, 7 years, they really haven't had a win now player. So I feel like Tyler Warren could be that guy for them. And I like this pick. They just need more weapons over there, and they need a lot better coming from their tight ends.
Look, the Colts absolutely need a tight end. It's been
Yeah.
a disaster for them. I'm not sure Warren's going to make it there. That's the issue.
Ooh.
Yeah, there's the
Where do you
Jets
think he
are
go?
the
Oh,
Jets are
yeah.
really talking up Tyler Warren now. So there's a chance that he could go there. So that would be my concern for the Colts. Because yes, the ideal landing spot in terms of a team that really needs a tight end is the Colts, no doubt.
Yeah.
But I think there's a chance that Warren winds up on the Jets.
I don't hate that. I don't hate that move for the Jets as well, because the other possibilities for them are offensive linemen, defensive linemen. That's where they can get a little bit more help. But okay, then give them Colston. Those are the two though. It's Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, right?
Yeah.
Those are the top two tight ends, and I mean, they're really good. There is potential there, because it's so funny looking back historically. We would always say, well, you have to wait maybe 2 or 3 years for these rookie tight ends to really give you anything in fantasy football. And now we've had Sam Laporta, we've had Brock Bowers these past 2 seasons. I don't know, with Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren, feels like one of those two guys is going to be someone that could put up those numbers for us again. So, and that's why I say Colston Loveland. I mean, that's a good, second place, and not even second place prize. That's just a good follow up tight end. I don't think you can go wrong with either of those guys.
No, and we've seen it. Like it's just I remember over the last few years, you can't take a rookie tight end
Yeah.
early. They need time to adjust to the NFL. Because I remember, yeah, Laporta's rookie year, remember getting him 11th, 12th round, basically with another tight end. So I said, okay, we know he has a lot of talent. The reason why he was going lower is because people shied away from taking these rookie tight ends because over history, we just didn't see them make a big impact in their first season. And that has changed.
Oh
And
yeah.
yes, we have an extreme with Brock Bowers last year, but we've seen Laporta do it. So it's certainly possible. And Warren looks really good. So I think especially in the right landing spot, you will see him go high. And even Colston Loveland, too, if he lands in the right spot. So we're seeing these rookie tight ends make more of an impact than we've ever seen.
I don't hate Colston Loveland. If so, in this scenario, Tyler Warren would go to the Colts. Colston Loveland's left, and then you have Colston Loveland going to the Los Angeles Chargers. I don't hate that. I know that they got Disley, right, and then they also got Tyler Conklin over these last couple weeks. So they have, but you can't tell me that Colston Loveland, when he goes in there, would just jump those guys on the depth chart. There would be to me, there'd be no question. And then for the Chargers, Lad McConkey, I'm gonna have to change my tune on Lad McConkey, because if they're not going to add anyone, like I thought they were going to be in on Davante Adams, and that was where I thought Davante Adams was going to land. And then we'd have to look at Lad McConkey and say, all right, well, we have to change up, where his ranking is right now. But I don't know, get Justin Herbert a little more help and give him, I don't hate Colston Loveland on that team either.
Yeah, again, like you said, he would surpass those guys in the depth chart. That
Yeah.
happens sometimes. A player falls in your lap, and you're like, well, it's not a major need, but he's clearly better, and you have to take that player, and you take the best talent, and you make sure you find a role for them, and that would be the case for the Chargers because we've said it time and again. Even though Justin Herbert had a great year last year, when you look at the stats, we saw in the postseason not enough. You can
Well,
get by in a regular season sometimes, but in those postseason games against the better competition, you need more help. And McConkey did his thing, but no one else stepped up. So they got to get him some help if they want to take the next step.
Lad McConkey, fantasylife.com rankings right now, early positional rankings, which we're going to go through, but wide receiver 12 overall.
Yeah, and again,
Seems right.
yeah, and for a while we were just like, well, we need to hold off. Are they going to add someone? And they did it. And yeah, he had a great year last year. I just remember
Yeah.
playing his player prop. Like they just had it low
Every
every
week.
single week. It was just like, okay, I'll take this again.
Like, if you want me to, I'll do it. Do you draft a lot? Do you do a lot of bets for the NFL draft?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't have the time. But I do. I have heard from people who follow it very closely. It can be very lucrative.
Yeah, that's what I've heard too. So I was ready to just tail you on everything. That's fine. We'll figure it out in the next coming months here. All right. Again, NFL draft, all that stuff. All of our articles 100% free at fantasylife.com. Same with our newsletter. So make sure you head over there fantasylife.com. I wanted to go through, just a few of these numbers that I saw on ESPN. Mike Clay did a great job writing down, some of the things he learned while doing his 2025 fantasy football projections. So I'm gonna highlight three of them that really stood out. We're gonna do that coming up next. Kendall Valenzuela, Adam Ronis with you right here, Fantasy Life on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, going through the numbers again. This is an article on ESPN from Mike Clay. Does a great job over there, but just kind of was checking out things that he learned while doing the 2025 fantasy football projections, and some of these numbers, Adam, really stood out to me, and I'm curious where we're going to land on this. Starting with, I know we just talked a little bit about the Denver Broncos and what they could do in the NFL draft. Something that they don't need to do is draft a quarterback, because they have the one and only Bo Nix, scored 316.2 fantasy points last season, fifth all time, by the way, by a rookie quarterback. So that was super impressive. We look at him. He had first 7 games. He only had 5 touchdowns in the first 7 games, through 24 in the final 10, 2.4 per game, which was obviously so impressive. And then for us in fantasy football, it was also the rushing upside and what he was able to show with his legs too. So I'm curious with you. I mean, with all the numbers that we have for Bo Nix, for this kind of dual threat ability that he really did show in his rookie season that he could have in the Sean Payton offense. Maybe you get him another weapon. You go out and get an Amari and Hampton, maybe at the running back position, because we're just both assuming that Ashton Jeanty is not going to fall. Definitely not going to fall that far, in my opinion. But are you drafting him this season? Are you back on the Bo Nix train?
Yeah, I'm definitely open to it. I actually had him in a league last year, the Greenwich Street Tavern League that we were in, separate leagues, 2 teams of 12. But I had, I think, Dak Prescott and Justin Fields. So obviously, Fields, we kind of knew that at some point he might lose the starting gig, which he did. Dak got hurt. And I picked up Knicks, and it helped me get the most points in the league. So I was following Knicks very closely because I had him. Definitely open to taking him again. I mean, you're going to have to draft him as a top 8, 9 quarterback would be my
Yeah.
guess. I think that's where he's going to go. And a very impressive rookie year. We'll see if they can add something. We did see Marvin Mims emerge too down the stretch as a big play threat. So we've been waiting on that. If he can continue to develop as well. And we Cortland Sutton was really good. But yeah,
Yeah.
getting the running game is pretty important, especially a running back that can catch a little bit, because they did rely on Knicks quite a bit. They just didn't have the running game last year.
No, it was pretty, and like you said, like Javante Williams, then it was a little bit of Jaleel McLaughlin. Like it wasn't good for them. So I agree. Go out and get to me, and I think I don't know if we wrote this one up, but to me it is Amari and Hampton, because that's probably, in my opinion, the second best running back when you come out of this draft, if you don't get Ashton Jeanty. So and listen, I did like I saw it when I was on my trip, but Evan Ingram going to be in that Joker role, it looks like, because a lot of the first mock drafts were like, okay, which tight end are they going to take? So Evan Ingram coming into town, then you get, let's say, an Amari and Hampton, and you just really open things up a little bit more for Bo Nix, which means probably greater stuff for fantasy football. So I really like Amari and Hampton potentially in this Broncos offense, and then like I said, Evan Ingram too. Like we can talk about that. You could say, well, maybe the target share isn't going to be there, but I think the opposite. You've got Cortland Sutton. Evan Ingram showed that. I mean, when he's got a career target share 19.9%, 23.6%, 25.2% over the past 2 seasons. So you put him in a Sean Payton offense where they haven't really had good tight ends, then I think that's going to continue to just kind of be in that way, 20% plus target share for him.
Yeah, we knew that the Broncos would be in the market for a tight end. I think before Ingram signed, people probably had the Broncos drafting a tight end. But now that you bring Ingram in, Obviously, they expect him to play a prominent role and
Yeah.
definitely more appealing in PPR formats. He just has not scored a lot of touchdowns, but he should be able to rack up the receptions. I think though there's always going to be people that are extremely high on this move, and I think in every draft there's going to be someone that kind of reaches a little bit higher on Engram than his ADP.
Yeah, probably. Where do we right now? Tight end 12. I could see him go in the top, 10 for people. I think he should be above Tucker Craft in
Yeah,
these rankings. And Tyler Warren, it kind of just depends on where he goes. But I understand Tyler Warren being kind of right inside the top 10. Then you've got Travis Kelsey, Johnny Smith, David Njoku. We've talked so much about how there's a huge tier break with the top three tight ends going in. So I could see people maybe taking Evan Ingram just a little bit sooner. And the other one, I need to know. I kind of already know your answer. Are you fading Jordan Love this season? It was good to start, right? And yeah, I know he got injured first few weeks of the season, but yeah, from week 8 on, finished outside the top 20 in five of 10 games, and it wasn't good.
yeah, they pretty much haven't done anything to add to the offense. I don't think I'll be drafting him. I didn't have him last year. 2 years ago, I did, but last year he cost a little bit more. And there were just quarterbacks I liked either before him or later than him. So I didn't have him. And right now, my initial lean is I don't think I'll be drafting him this year.
QB 13. I was surprised in our positional rankings. I thought he would be a little bit less liked, maybe more in the Drake May, Dak Prescott territory, but I might go back. You know me. I'm a sucker for saying, "Oh, well it's going to be way better this year. We're going to get the Jordan Love of 2 years ago, not last year." So, we'll see. Again, that article is at ESPN. Great job over there. It is our favorite time of the day though. Time for that fantasy life water cooler. All the news and notes that you need to know coming up next. Oh, you already know what time it is by now. Time for that fantasy life water cooler right here. Kendall Valenzuela, Adam Ronis with you on Fantasy Life here on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, going through all the news, all the pieces of notes that you might have missed here in the first hour, and making sure you're all caught up in all the off-season news that sometimes gets swept under a little bit. But we've got you covered here, and of course, we always have you covered at fantasylife.com. So make sure you go over there, check out all of our articles. We've got Dwayne McFarland's rookie supermodel out as well. So you definitely want to go and see all of that. Articles 100% free. Same with our newsletter. So yeah, just go sign up. You got Adam and I doing the Friday ones. So you definitely want to check it out there. Fantasylife.com. Let's get started here, Adam. There was actually a lot. I'm excited. We've got a good mix of fun and then kind of serious conversation. So let's go over Puka Nacua, who is, by the way, 23 years old, saying that he plans to retire at the age of 30. I do too, Adam, by the way. I just want to let that be known that I'm ready to go and retire at the age of 30. But he put, I don't know, this felt like I wrote this up and I remember Tyreek Hill saying the same thing, not 30 years old, but didn't Tyreek Hill a couple years ago say that he's going to finish out his contract with the Dolphins and then call it quits? So I don't know. I don't know. I like it. It's not, hey, it's not my career. So if they're ready to call out that they're going to be done early, there you go. 30 years old. We still got him for a long time.
Couple things here. I know it's hard to
Okay, go
believe,
ahead.
but I'm actually past the age of 30,
What?
so I can't
No.
retire. So, yes,
No,
I know
that's
I
fine.
look extremely younger. Now, with Tyreek Hill, well, so Puka Nacua, his reason was he wanted to have a big family. He wanted to have
Okay.
a starting five, and he wanted to spend time with them.
Nice. Okay.
Tyreek Hill has way more than a starting five. So, uh,
No comment.
yeah, it's a lot of kids there.
You're
But
horrible.
yeah, it's weird because you just don't hear players say this. That's why I
Yeah.
think the reactions and some people have been negative about it is you just don't hear players say this. Most of the time they want to play a long career. I mean, look, 30, we've seen receivers in the NFL, you can play past the age of 30, some slow down. He's a very physical receiver that has constantly had injuries already. I mean, there are games we watch and we see him limp to the sidelines and we're like, please come back if you have him on your fantasy team or you bet on him. So yeah, it was just kind of surprising because you don't hear athletes say that, especially at the age
Yeah.
of 23. Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna retire at this age. So I think that's why people were surprised by it. It's not something we're accustomed to hearing, and some people were outraged. Like, why are you talking about that now? The thought of retirement in your head. He turns 24 in May, so from a football perspective, there's not much here, right? If you have him in Dynasty,
No.
who cares? I mean, even if he does retire at 30, you get 6, 7 more years of him. Not a big deal. And who even knows? I mean, we hope that he stays healthy and doesn't have a significant injury, but it was just, you just don't hear players say this. That's why.
Yeah, it was, you know, a little bit surprising, but then again, okay, so we have him for whatever it is, 7 more years. I think we're gonna be 6, 7 more years, whatever. It's gonna be, we're
Your
gonna be
dynasty
okay.
league's going to fold in 7 years anyway.
Stop.
It
It's gonna be
is.
fine. It's gonna be fine. I will say though, Puka Nacua, wide receiver 4 for us in our fantasy rankings. And again, I mean, I'm curious because I wasn't here with you when all the Davante Adams stuff happened, but did that move the needle for you at all? Like Davante Adams, for all that it's worth last season, I mean, it took a little while to get going with Aaron Rodgers, but once he did, they were nice. Only Jamar Chase, Brian Thomas Jr. scored more fantasy points than Adams during the final 6 weeks of 2024. At least, and I understand he was peppered with targets. I think he led the league in targets last season, and I can go and check that. But Devontae Adams, for everything that we've talked about with him, did not look washed, at least when he was with the Jets. That's for sure.
No, definitely. It didn't start off well, but that finish to the season was ridiculous. And Rodgers kept peppering it with targets. He scored touchdowns, so he clearly showed that he has a lot left. But we also have seen what Puka Nacua and Cooper Cup healthy, like both have been able to be top 12, top 15 wide receivers. So I don't think this changes anything for me. It actually could help Puka a little bit as far as drawing some more attention, but I would think Puka still gets more targets than Davante Adams.
Yeah, it has to be, right? And you're still drafting, like I just said. I mean, you're still drafting Puka Nacua as a top wide receiver 1. I'm curious where we have Devontae Adams. Also, I lied. He did not lead the league in targets. It was Jamar Chase at 175. He was down there at 141. I want Devontae Adams 141 for 2024. But again, he was still just, I mean, he was still just really good. I'm actually excited for this Rams team. Not that I haven't been before in the past, but I mean, they've got, you bring Matthew Stafford back because there were conversations going around like maybe he's going to get traded, maybe he's not going to be there anymore. You've got Puka Nacua, Cooper Cup is is now with the Seattle Seahawks. We don't need to talk about that, but yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for this team. They could be. It's not even sneaky good. Like they could just be straight up good, especially in that division.
They were good last year. I mean,
Yeah,
they were actually close to knocking off Philadelphia, right? They probably played Philadelphia the best of any team
yeah.
in the postseason. They were that close, and the weather was a factor there. If it wasn't, maybe they actually pull out a victory. But uh, yeah, it's crazy because we were sitting here like, oh, is Stafford going to be the quarterback? And I think we all knew that they were going to figure it out. It didn't make sense for him to go anywhere else. He knows the system. They've had success, and then they bring in Davante Adams. So uh, yeah, they're looking pretty good. And then Kyren Williams, will he stay healthy again?
You can't fade Kyren Williams
Yeah.
again.
Wait a second. You
You,
can't. You
you,
can't. Oh, me
yeah.
specifically?
Yeah, because I remember you said I got you didn't have any Kyren Williams,
No, I
right?
didn't.
Yeah.
So his his second year with the Rams, 2023, I had him everywhere because he was
Yes.
so cheap that I said, and I thought he had an opportunity to take over the backfield. So that was great. Last year, I said he had so many injuries. He was even injured in the offseason, too. And I said, all right, this guy's not going to be able to hold up at 5'9", 200 pounds. He had missed 5 games in 2023, and he was going in the second round. He might have fell to the third because I think there were a lot,
Mhm.
maybe other people had a similar sentiment. And then, of course, he played 16 games, had 316 carries. Now his efficiency went down, but the volume more than made up for it. And he had 16 total touchdowns after having 15 the previous year. So he actually was better overall points because of the volume. But asking him to stay healthy again, I don't know. 316
Okay.
carries last year. So,
Yeah. For his
because
career,
here's
for his career, he's at 579,
the
two
thing is
thousand
though,
five hundred
so
eighty-two yards.
people are gonna just look. They do this every year. They're gonna be like, "Well, I was wrong last year. All right, I'm back in on Kyren Williams," and then this will be the year that he doesn't stay healthy.
Are you gonna have the same sentiment with Achan then? Or do you think that that offense is truly going to run through him again? And it was like the between him and Jonnu Smith, it was interesting how that season finished. But you still have a Tyreek Hill there with you on that offense. You still have a Jalen Waddle, who I just can't do that anymore. Maybe just a small amount of Jalen Waddle, but and hopefully a healthy Tua Tagovailoa. But do you feel the same way about Achan and how they use him?
The difference is HN doesn't get as many carries, right? So he's not running between the tackles as much. A lot of his production is coming in the passing game where you can still get hit, but you can go out of bounds. You might get hit
Mhm.
once. When you're running between the tackles, you're getting hit multiple times, and that wear and tear adds up. HN only had 203 carries last year, but he had 78 receptions on 87 targets. Look at that efficiency, too. Just catching every pass thrown his way. So, yeah, in PPR leagues, that's where Echan's value lies because a lot of people were concerned when they said, okay, 7.8 yards per carry in his rookie year on 103 carries. And you knew that efficiency was going to drop, and it did. But it's not like he went from 103 carries to 270. He had 203. So if they're going to utilize him in the same fashion, where they're going to get him that many passes in the receiving game, then you got to be open to Echan.
Yeah, 203, and then like you said, Kyren Williams at
See,
316.
see
That was
Kyron Williams.
third.
So, what's your initial reaction to Kyron Williams? Because it's easy to say you got to draft him based on what you saw the last 2 years, but I still do think there are concerns about can he maintain this workload? Because we've seen the Rams, they say you're getting the football and it's
Mhm.
work, but I still am a little leery. Uh, Again, he burned me last year because I passed on him, and I'm sure if I would have had him on more teams, maybe I would have more championships or have been in a better position. But are you gonna? Am I wrong, or do you
No,
think
no. No,
like
I'm not
there's
I'm
got to be
not
a
going.
little concern, right?
There's always concern with those kind of, especially when you look at the numbers like you just said, 316 attempts. That's puts him up there. Saquon Barkley had 345, Derrick Henry 325, and then you've got Bijan Robinson, Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs behind Kyron Williams. So I agree with you there. I think I'm going to make sure, just in case, because I think, getting that running back, maybe one of those bell cow backs early, right? And then you just spend the rest of your draft focusing on getting some receivers, getting elite tight end. Or, when I go zero RB, which is something that we're going to talk about here, like you go and get the Chase Browns of the world. It's not going to be Bucky Irving anymore, but I would have like Bucky Irving, Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor ahead of him this year, ahead of Kyron Williams.
Yeah, I think
That's probably where I have him, like
Ta-
RB 11.
well, you said Taylor Jacobs and who else ahead of him?
Bucky
Okay,
Irving, which I
yeah,
know I know people. I think Bucky is right where it ends, where you could flip back and forth between Bucky Irving, but like I think Joe Mixon should be behind him in the rankings. I think James Cook, Brees Hall should definitely be behind him in the rankings. So that's probably where I'm going to have him, is right there where Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, Bucky Irving are, but all behind all three of those guys.
I think he's a tough call. There were 6 running backs last year that had at least 300 rushing attempts. The year before, there wasn't one. 2023,
Really,
the most rushing attempts was Derrick Henry at 280. We had 6 go over 301 last year.
that's crazy.
Yeah,
And we have to. And here,
the only two running backs that had more carries than Kyren Williams, Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry. Like, and
yeah,
if you're saying there are obviously bigger backs than him, so
yes.
there will be people who are concerned about both those guys as well. But Henry is just an outlier and a huge back, and Barkley also is built for those bigger workloads. Whereas Kyron Williams, I think there's got to be concern. Again, if you're just looking at the last 2 years, I know there's people listening like, "Oh, you're crazy. Look at what he's done," but it's not what was done. We're looking ahead. We're projecting ahead, and I just and maybe Kyron Williams is one of those outliers too. Maybe he's a smaller back that just is tough and can withstand that workload. It's certainly
Yeah.
possible.
14 touchdowns as well.
I
That puts
know.
him,
That's the
he's tied for fifth in that. I mean, he's tied for Bijan Robinson. Saquon Barkley had 13.
yeah.
Josh Jacobs 15, Jameer Gibbs, James Cook, Derrick Henry all 16.
That's the thing. If he keeps getting this workload, the one thing about the Rams, we've talked about this. There's certain teams where we know where the football is going, and they make it fantasy friendly. The Rams are that way. It's Kyron
Mm.
Williams in the backfield, and it's going to be Adams and Puka. They've kind of always been that way the last few years. Kyren Williams, when he's healthy, is getting everything. Like
Yeah.
there was the Blake Corum talk, and it just doesn't happen. It's just Kyren Williams stays healthy and keeps getting these massive workloads.
I will say, so all that to say, I'm probably, not necessarily passing him up every single time because of that. I think I do want a little bit of exposure to him. But like I said, I'm gonna have Bucky ahead of him, Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, some of those guys. And then it gets into that tier three of Joe Mixon, James Cook, Brees Hall. Like, give me Kyron Williams over all those guys. But I won't actively be fading him. I don't think, which it doesn't sound like you will either, but he just has to be priced correctly.
Yeah, no, I'm.
Exactly.
There's just some concern, just
Yeah, just a
because
little.
he made it through last year. It just doesn't mean okay, fine. Yeah, we're just
And
gonna go
all
with
these
him. We're good
running
to go.
and all these running backs aren't going to stay as healthy. Like, I hate to say that because we never want injuries, but I mean, the rate that we were going with the compared to the wide receiver injuries that we had last season, and that's why it's so important. I think we wrote about this together, but it's just the recency bias is going to make early drafts especially really interesting because people are going to say, well, I definitely don't want to go zero RB because look at last season, all these wide receivers got hurt and all of these really good running backs were able to help these guys win their fantasy leagues and all this stuff. So that's the other part of it is that wide receiver injuries were big last season. The running backs just did not get hurt at the rate that we usually see, and it feels like that's going to be again another outlier where we say to ourselves, just try to erase that from your memory and draft how you usually do.
Yeah, and I think people are gonna get suckered into it. And you just look at what happened last year. I know people are screaming Christian McCaffrey. Like I said, I didn't want him as number one pick. I was very concerned in the preseason. Okay, fine. If you took McCaffrey, you think it was the right call, and you just got burned because San Francisco wasn't honest. Fine, but you look at everyone else. Saquon Barkley, 16 games played, and he sat out. He could have played 17. Derrick Henry, 17 games. Kyren Williams, 16. He sat out the last game when the Rams rested, so he could have played 17. Bijan, 17.
Yeah.
Jonathan Taylor, 14. Josh Jacobs, 17. Najee Harris, 17. Pollard, 16. And Pollard played through injuries. Aaron Jones, 17. Swift, 17. Jameer Gibbs, 17. Connor, 16. Just Chase Brown, 16. Brees Hall, 16. 16 for Cook. 17 for Bucky. Achane, 17. Just like,
They were
you
healthy.
don't see this. It's absurd. Like, there were very few injuries to the running back position, which we never see. So you cannot count on that happening again. So there are going to be people that take two running backs in the first three rounds. There might be some that take three in the first three because they saw it work last year. You have to understand it just doesn't repeat like that. You can't just go based on last year. And that's where inexperienced or people playing fantasy for the second or third year, they do that. They just like, oh, this happened last year. We're doing it this year. You can't do that. You have to project going forward and understand what we saw last year is not going to repeat.
Yeah, oh, I agree 100%. So it'll be fun once we start getting those drafts in as well. Let me just give you one more part of this water cooler so we don't just mention that Puka Nacua wants to retire at 30 and that's the whole thing. Let me just say the Ravens and John Harbaugh agreed to a 3-year contract extension. Here's my question for you, Adam. 3-year contract extension. He's 62 years old, whatever. And do they win a Super Bowl in his 3 years? Three
Oh,
3 years on this contract. That's my question for you. Do they win a Super Bowl in the next 3 years?
I really want to say yes. It's
Me
always
too.
tough with the Chiefs there, but I'm going to say yes.
Yes. Look at that. I like it. Positivity. They're right there, right? 13-4 2 seasons ago, 12-5 entering the playoffs. And then, you lose. That's just the one thing. They lose in the divisional round to the Bills. And then the AFC championship came to the Chiefs. So they have to get over that hump. But you have Derrick Henry. So that does help. I want to say yes with you. This year, should we just say this year? Should we give our
It's
early
got to
Super Bowl
be right
predictions?
with Henry and Lamar. It's got to be close to this year.
It has to be. It has to be. And I'm not fading Lamar Jackson or fading Derrick Henry. Also, I'm going to keep drafting him as well. So yeah, 3 years. I just had to ask if they win a Super Bowl in those 3 years. So that'll be a fun one to watch for sure. We're going to continue on again. That was the Fantasy Life Water Cooler, fantasylife.com. Go and subscribe to that newsletter and check out all of our articles 100% free. Especially you've got Dwayne McFarland's rookie supermodels over there. So if you want to learn about the incoming rookies, make sure you go and check it out for the tight ends, for the running backs, and for the wide wide receivers. We're going to go through some later round quarterbacks that we could potentially target here coming into draft season. We're going to do that coming up next. This is Fantasy Life. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us today. We've got the best listeners. I am biased, but I still believe that we're going through maybe some. I just want to talk some late round quarterbacks here. I know again it's super early, Adam, so these are going to change a lot. But I do have some questions on guys that we already know. Have the starting quarterback job, the QB1 job, and then some of the rookies coming in and where you think people should start to look at them in these drafts. So the first one that I want to ask, because he was hurt. So why would we talk about JJ McCarthy last season with the season that Sam Darnold had? But looking at JJ McCarthy, he's going to be a late round quarterback ad. That is definitely going to be someone, and maybe he jumps up the depth charts once we've got, OTAs under our belt, once training camp is there and we really start to see him out there. But, his season was cut way short. And again, we had the Sam Darnold phenomenon, and we talked with Kevin O'Connell at the Super Bowl and just said, hey, you're a quarterback whisperer, and you were able to get that out of Darnold. So for JJ McCarthy and all the weapons that he has there, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison had a great season last year. He could be someone that you look at and say, I'm going to get him in later rounds and focus on, other things, earlier in your drafts.
Yeah, again, in best ball drafts, you want to try and find that value. And if you are drafting now, the next month, yes, we're still waiting for some answers as far as the draft, but you could also gain some really good value. You might get
Yeah.
burned in a few spots, but you understand that when you are doing a best ball draft this early. But McCarthy, yeah, it sets up well. We saw Sam Darnold didn't have much success in his NFL career. Comes to Minnesota, we know what O'Connell can do with quarterbacks and put up ridiculous numbers. So you just need McCarthy to be competent and get the football to these targets. I guess the one concern is Aaron Rodgers going to Minnesota, right?
What
No,
is with that? What is, I don't
I
get
know,
it.
right?
What are we doing? First of all, I no, I just, can you tell I've been thinking about this a lot? I really have. It's just, I don't know what's going on. And the Steelers don't have a starting quarterback, by the way. Like, that's the thing that's crazy to me, is that there were these reports that Aaron Rodgers went and talked with them for 6 hours or something like that, but he left without a deal. And then you still hear these rumors and rumblings about him going to Minnesota, and it's just like, what? Why?
It seems like Pittsburgh is where he's going to go. But look, Minnesota would be a better spot, but I wonder if Minnesota even wants that at this point. They obviously have faith in McCarthy drafting him last year. So just looking at that right now, yes, this is
That's
a good
crazy.
target in basketball drafts in the late rounds, especially since, most of these formats you're going to draft 3 quarterbacks. I have
Yeah.
no problem taking him as one of my 3 because, again, it's believing in O'Connell and the system, and the weapons are there. I mean, just
Yep.
get the ball in the hands of Jefferson. You got Hawkinson, who will now have, the full offseason. We saw him start slowly and then come on strong. Jordan Addison, uh, Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason. So there's a lot of weapons here. And again, trust in O'Connell in this offensive system. So definitely a good target late.
I don't know. Aaron Rodgers is just confusing me, but he's going to wait, because then we're just going to keep talking about
Talking
him.
about him,
So
yeah.
that's
And
just, I mean,
do you hate Aaron Rodgers?
no, I
Okay.
don't hate.
Yeah, I
I don't
don't
really
either.
hate any. I get it, but it's always just sometimes funny where it's like, of course he was going to be. If we had a bingo card, that was on the bingo card of Aaron Rodgers being the last one, to sign, and that was probably, with the Giants, they were supposedly in on him as well, but they probably just didn't. They didn't want to wait, and they said we can't keep waiting on him to figure it out, and then they went and got Russell Wilson. So I don't know. The Steelers right now, though, have Mason Rudolph QB1, and I just think that I wrote about this on FantasyLife.com. But Tomlin is one of the best coaches in the NFL, so he does get a little bit of grace, because that he's always going to have these winning seasons. He's always going to be 500 plus, but this is one part of the offseason, and probably 8 months from now we'll be laughing even talking about this. But yeah, it worries me just a little bit. And then the value for DK Metcalf, George Pickens, I don't know.
Well,
But that seems like where Aaron Rodgers is going to go.
it
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 should
pretty
be.
much I think has to be again Minnesota the only one. So Tom Pelissero, who covers the NFL, he basically said it's Pittsburgh or wait. And he said Minnesota isn't likely to open up. He said there's a small percentage chance that it changes and Minnesota opens up, but he said it's not likely to happen. So I guess that's what's Rodgers hoping, right? Because if you're choosing between Minnesota and Pittsburgh, you probably go Minnesota, right?
Oh, probably. You get
Yeah.
you get
So
Kevin O'Connell, you get
and you get to
somewhat not a rookie, but I mean it's his first season. I will say the depth they've got no one. That only JJ McCarthy on that depth chart right now because Daniel Jones left for the Colts
Indianapolis.
to
Yeah.
be in that quarterback. So yeah, they need, and I don't know if they go to the draft. They'll probably just end up right getting a veteran. If it's not Aaron Rodgers, they probably just go out and get a veteran quarterback, right?
Yeah.
Not,
So
it's not cute, but
yeah, but I think we all believe it's going to be Rodgers in Pittsburgh at this point, and they must feel the same way, or they're like, "Oh, we're in trouble then."
Joe Flacco, who says no? Come on,
Nah,
Carson Wentz.
that's the thing.
Oh
They're just pretty
gosh,
much reliant
I
on
know
Rodgers
it.
at this point.
It's making me a little bit nervous. I will say, can we, I know we're talking quarterbacks here, but I also, Jordan Mason, I really liked that move, by the way, for the Minnesota Vikings. Like, I know that Jordan Mason, it took a little while and it also took a Christian McCaffrey injury. But in those 12 games, 3 touchdowns, 789 yards. I thought that was a really nice piece, like a 1-2 punch going in there with Aaron Jones, who was a bit banged up last season, but still had a great season for you if you drafted him in fantasy football because he was one of those zero RB targets. So I know I had him in a good amount of places, but I really liked that move for the Vikings to go out and get Jordan Mason.
Yeah, Aaron Jones, 30 years old, going
Yep.
into the season. He did play all 17 games, but he was banged up at times. He was able to play through it, but we saw the way Green Bay utilized him in his career. We were always upset, like, why doesn't Jones get more touches? And they always kind of split. They probably felt like that was the best way to make him most effective and keep him healthy. And Minnesota probably was looking at like, he was really good for us, but we want to have a competent backup in case something happens to Jones. So yeah, it's a good combination there.
Anthony Richardson. Best we can talk best ball, we can talk redraft. Is he undraftable in your opinion this season? Now, I think that if we're talking quarterback competition and it's him and Daniel Jones, that Anthony Richardson is going to be the starting quarterback week 1. He will be QB1, but do you think it's too risky, especially when we talk best ball and we talk specifically underdog drafts, it's week 17 is so important there, and you've got the playoffs, week 15, 16, 17, when we're looking at all the redraft stuff. So to you, undraftable, or are you going to target him?
So it is different in best ball and redraft. Best ball, I think it is risky because there's a chance that he loses the job. They're even talking about a competition with Daniel Jones, which is a little surprising.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, I understand we have not seen a large sample from Richardson. It's 15 games, and he didn't have a lot of time at quarterback in college. So we need to see more. But what we've seen in the NFL, it has not been good. 50.6% completion percentage, 13 interceptions compared to 11 touchdowns. Yes, the rushing floor is really good, but if there's a chance that he starts poorly and then they bench him for Daniel Jones, they basically sent a message to Richardson like, you
Hmm.
better play well because if you don't, we're not afraid to bench you. So when you're talking best ball, it's a risk. In redraft, I think it's worth taking a chance on him because this was a guy that was drafted last year, top 7, top 8. It was clearly a mistake. And the crazy part is I was off him and then we always have the FOMO. So I had one of my last drafts and every other player was passing on him. And I think I got him as QB 10 or 11. I was like, I don't
Okay.
have him. What if he goes off? I'll take him. And obviously, it didn't work out, and I had to replace him and wound up cutting him. But in a redraft league, if you can get him as QB 18, QB 19, if you have one good quarterback and you take him, that's worth the risk. Because if he does start well and we see that rushing ability and he improves as a passer, now you have a potential QB1 on your bench that you can trade, or sometimes we see this, you take that second quarterback, they wound up outplaying your QB1 and he
Hmm.
becomes your starter every week. And If it doesn't work out and he continues to struggle and they do turn to Daniel Jones, he's an easy cut. But in basketball, you don't have that ability. So that's why, to me, he is more risky in that format because if you draft him as your QB2 and your QB3 doesn't play or is ineffective, that's a big problem.
Yeah,
So there's you can say whatever you want. There's a lot of risk with Anthony Richardson. There
there
just
is.
is.
There is. The odds that, we there's nothing in front of us, but the odds that he doesn't play, in that, like you just said, in the fantasy playoffs, I mean, those are unfortunately high. And the other part is that I really want to believe Anthony Richardson is the answer for the Colts. He just needed a little bit of time. They needed to figure some things out. Like we said, get him another weapon in Tyler Warren and let's see what happens. But like you said, career 50.6% completion percentage, fifth lowest mark among 210 quarterbacks with 300 plus pass attempts since 2000. That is horrible. It's just horrible. And the other part is that he only has 17 NFL starts to his name. So I know that there's this quarterback competition with Daniel Jones. I don't think that that's going to be an issue for him. I hope not, trying to beat him out and be QB1. But like you said, we don't know if, for best ball purposes, we don't know if he's going to be playing during the fantasy playoffs for redraft. It's always, but this is going to be the thing for people, and it's baked into the price. Like he should be around rankings quarterback 24, right? 24, 25. That's how far he should be. You should have no problem if he's not serviceable during the season, you should have no problem cutting him. Last season it probably took people a little bit longer to do that because like you said, he was going as like QB5, QB6. I mean, he
Hmm.
was wildly expensive. He's right there with CJ Stroud, which also didn't work out. So with the price baked in, people should be way more comfortable just dropping him and saying this is not working. But yeah, it's gonna be a gamble no matter what, which stinks because we know for fantasy football just how valuable he can be with his legs and on the ground. But yeah, might be a gamble for some people there. We're gonna continue on though. Early, speaking of rankings, I want to go through some early positional rankings that we have at fantasylife.com. Got to talk through some maybe not controversial, but some guys that we might be split on for the 2025 season. We're gonna go through that coming up next. All right, Adam, we got to get into some positional fantasy football rankings. I know it's way too early, but what come on, we have to do it. We've got most of, free agency all wrapped up, just waiting on a few names. I think that's the biggest one for us right now. Keenan Allen, seeing where he
Yeah.
goes, which probably looks like it'll be the Chargers
Well, yeah. Didn't he say he wanted to be, what was it,
in
LA
Cal.
or?
Yeah. It's just like Davante Adams said the same thing. I want to be playing California,
Mhm.
but it was with the Rams or the Chargers, not the 49ers. So that's probably the only one we're waiting on here. But I do want to go through some of our positional rankings. Again, fantasylife.com is where you can go and check all of these out. Let's start since we're talking about California. Let's start with let's go with Brock Purdy here. Brock Purdy, I know that Ian has written before saying put some respect on Brock Purdy's name. Early underdog ADP right now looks like is QB 11. When we look at our rankings, especially for Ian is way ahead on this and kind of likes him more than everyone else, but he has him QB 7. The rest right now, when we do an average, it looks like Brock Purdy's coming out as QB 11 right now at fantasylife.com. But they made moves this offseason. You might get Brandon Ayuk back. I hope he's ready for week 1, but that was a brutal injury. And you have Debo Samuel on the move. But he worked as the QB9, QB7, and QB10 in fantasy points per game over the past 3 seasons. Brock Purdy did. So still in on him. Do you think he's still just going to be that guy that puts up, solid numbers for us? Kind of set it and forget it. Don't have to worry.
Yeah, I think QB 11 is definitely fair. A lot of it is a product of the offense. We know when they're completely healthy, he just has an array of weapons. Things have changed a little bit. I think a lot will depend on the health of Christian McCaffrey too. You had
Yeah.
mentioned previously the numbers of Jordan Mason, but he just didn't do as much in the passing game. So having McCaffrey available just opens things up because he can catch those short passes and turn them into big yards. Still have Kittle there. We'll see with Ayuk. I did see something about by April 1st, April 2nd. There's been talk that maybe he could be traded, but I guess
I don't
a,
get that either.
a big
Talking about
bonus is supposed to kick in by
so they're
that
just
date.
going to have they're just not going to have Debo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk. They're just going to have, George Kittle and call it a
Jennings and
Jennings,
Pearsall.
and
I mean, obviously
Pearsall.
they're very high on Pearsall. So,
They are.
but Yeah, I mean, with Purdy, that's like the appropriate range. Like he just doesn't have the huge ceiling because the pass attempts are just not there. Like this is a team that's just not going to throw it 600 times. So you're looking at 450 to 500 pass attempts. The efficiency has been there. He has thrown the interceptions. It's now 23 over the last two seasons, but it's really a product of the offense. So when they're completely healthy, he has enough weapons to put up numbers. I don't think anyone's excited to take him, but I think QB 11 is fair.
For everything that happened last season to finish as QB 10 in fantasy points per game was pretty. I mean, that was honestly pretty impressive because you didn't have Christian McCaffrey. Ricky Pearsall was out for a chunk there at the beginning. Brandon Ayuk went down. Trent
Debo wasn't
Williams.
good.
Debo
Yeah, Trent
Debo just
Williams.
disappeared. It's
Yeah,
fine. It's because I took him in way too many leagues, and he said, "Oh, you drafted me too much. That's fine." That was just disgusting. But for him to have that QB 10 finish was pretty impressive with everything else that went on. So I agree with you right there. Like QB 11 is probably the range going around. Mm, I still, the Jared Goff thing is still mind blowing to me that he's inside the top 10
he
on
shouldn't
underdog.
be.
But that's
Yeah, I
again,
don't.
I'm glad
I
you brought
but
up
it.
the stacks though, because
Yeah, that it
if
has
you're
to be
trying to
that.
stack Jameer Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, even a Jamison Williams, like that has to be
Laporta.
why he's being pushed up because him inside the top. I just again that one I think that one changes. I think that one changes as the months go on. What about Justin Fields for you? Right now at Fantasy Life, QB 12 best is QB 11 looking at Waz and Dwayne McFarland's rankings. But back in the quarter QB1 conversation because he has to be. He's with the Jets. I don't think him going to the Jets, I don't think he's going to have to look over his shoulder either. I think Aaron Glenn, I really do like that partnership. He's not going to have to look and say, well, when is Russell Wilson going to get the start? When is he going to take my job? So as long as he gets the opportunity to prove or to try and show, and I'm sure that that's what they're trying to do with his contract that they gave him, is figure out if he could be that guy. But the rushing upside for us, it's just too good to put him outside, Adam, the top 12. We just can't because of the potential he has to just get on the ground and run.
That's the bottom line, and we've seen it. Whenever he has the opportunity, he's right around that QB1 range, just because of his ability to run. He's averaged around like 50 yards rushing per game in his career.
Yep.
You know he's going to take off, and he just needs to be decent as a passer. In the games with the Steelers last year where he
He
started,
was
he was
good.
solid. He actually didn't turn the ball over too. He had one interception in that span, those first few games of the year. What he started, I think the first 6 games, right?
Six.
Because he
Yep.
went 5-1, and he had 5 touchdowns, one interception. But he also rushed for 5 rushing touchdowns in that span. I mean, and again, it's just you're going to get 50 rushing yards. He'll have the occasional game where he breaks off 70, 80 yards, and he's got Garrett Wilson, who he's familiar with back at Ohio
BFFs.
State.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, I know I'm gonna have Fields on a few teams because he'll be he'll be right. He'll probably go right around QB 12, QB 13
Yeah.
because
Low
there's
end
gonna be
quarterback one.
people like us, I think, that are optimistic and will take them. But yeah, if I wait on my quarterback or I miss out on, I typically don't draft the top five. I'm more open to it now more than ever, just because
Mhm.
they just give you such a high floor. And if you can get one of them in the fourth, fifth round, why not? Right.
Yeah.
So I typically don't do it, but I'm open to it. If not, if I wait and Justin Fields is one of my guys and then I compare him with someone else, I am certainly fine with that because he produces. You could say what you want from an NFL perspective, takes too many sacks, makes mistakes. A lot of truth to that. You're never going to get huge passing yardage games, right? He had, in his 6 starts, he had a 312-yard passing game. He had a 245. The other four will 156 or fewer. But he was still on pace over those 6 games on points per game to finish as a QB1. So it just goes to show you how much that rushing is important and why we love these quarterbacks that are going to run. So yeah, absolutely. Fields, he's going to finish probably as a QB1 in points per game, and I will draft him.
And that's how we're drafting him. Low end QB1 because it feels like he's the last, when you look at rankings, he's one of the last guys in those tiers that gives you that that rushing upside, that rushing floor, because then you have, the Jordan Loves, Caleb Williams, Herbert, Drake May, Dak Prescott. So, and like you said, it's so fun to have these conversations when people look at him as just from the NFL perspective, and you're like, no, we get it. NFL wise, yeah, you Justin Fields is probably not moving the needle much for you, but for fantasy, like you said, I mean, 6 starts with the Steelers last season, QB 7 in points per game at 18.9. Like he showed it to us. He has 44 career starts. He averages 55 rushing yards, 17.2 points per game. So we're drafting him as the low end QB1 right now in 2025, and I don't think that's going to move either. Like I think he is right where he's supposed to be at QB 12. And again, the rankings, I think Jared, he's going to be ahead of Jared Goff for me. So it would probably go, Kyler Murray, Brock Purdy, Justin Fields. That's where it should be. And then Jared Goff later. We have him at QB 11, Jared Goff in the rankings.
Yeah, I would have him a little lower than that.
14,
Yeah, 14,
Caleb
15.
Williams. Caleb Williams, Justin Herbert, Drake May.
I would take Caleb Williams over him. I feel, look, it is set up for Caleb Williams to succeed. There's no excuses. They
I know.
added 3 offensive linemen. I think the play calling is going to change. They're going to get him easier throws. There'll be more play action. So, is there risk? Yeah, but he had the weapons. We saw signs down the stretch, especially when they made the offensive coordinator change. He didn't turn it over. And maybe they ask him to take more chances too. But yeah, I think I would. I know Goff, it's easy to say, well, he's done it. But, losing Ben Johnson, how much of a factor is that? And we just seen it's just you get these really good games from Goff, and then you get games where Gibbs has 2 rushing and David Montgomery has 2 rushing.
Yeah. And you shouldn't lead the league in sacks either, right? 68 last year. Hopefully that doesn't happen for Caleb
Oh, that cannot
again.
happen again. Again,
It can't.
there were a lot that was his fault.
Yes, yes,
Usually
yes.
there's quarterbacks deserve blame for sacks as well. Um, Obviously not all of them, but he certainly played a part in that. But you hope that they made a real focus on improving the offensive line, and having a good coach in there certainly has got to help Caleb Williams. And if he flops, then it's on him.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you on that. All right, I've got two more names that I want to ask you, because I know that the world is divided by these two running backs, but I want to see if we're on the same page here. We're going to give you those names for positional rankings coming up next. All right, Adam, I'm back in on a running back, and I think, I'm trying to figure out if you're going to be with me on this or not. Najee Harris. I'm back in, going over everything that he's done, and now going to the Chargers, who Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins. Like we knew that wasn't going to be phenomenal. J.K. Dobbins definitely had a better season than I was expecting. But what do you think, Nash? I might be back. I might be ready to go. Like I can't believe in the year 2025 I'm talking like that. He hasn't missed a game. That's something that we've always said. He's very durable as well. But as things stand right now, yeah, I like him over there with the Chargers. They rank top 12 in both running back carries, running back rushing touchdowns, also top 10 in overall rush rate. I just think it's a really good spot for him.
Yeah, it's a great fit. Like, Harris is not this exciting running back. He doesn't break long runs. He's not explosive, but you don't need that in this Charger system. We've seen, as you mentioned, J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards be solid. So Harris, 3.9 yards per carry for his career. People will point out he's had 1,000 yards every year in his first 4 years in the
Yeah.
league. It's not a big accomplishment anymore with the 17
But it's
games,
still fun to
but
say.
yeah, it is, but context is needed. But this is all about the fit. Like, I think
Yeah.
most other teams, we probably wouldn't be that optimistic. But when you look at the situation here for the Chargers, that offensive line, the way they want to run the offense, I would think the yards per carry go up a little bit. He might be able to get more touchdowns. He can catch the football as well. So it's a really good fit. So I
Mhm.
am definitely open to drafting him, especially if I go back to what I've done in the past, kind of heavy receiver, one running back early. I think Harris could fit the build. You put him in there as your RB2, especially if you're strong early on. So I think he's definitely in play this year for sure. And
Oh, good.
like you,
I like that.
I didn't think that was going to be the case. And then when I saw him with the Chargers, I was like, wow, okay, this could work.
It's nice. I mean, he to me, when you look at that offense, is the clear lead back. Of course, some things can change in the next couple months, but drafting him as a, mid-range low end RB2 is where I'm going to have him. And as a zero RB drafter, he's probably going to be right in that range where I just say to myself, okay, yeah, this makes sense with him going over to this Chargers team. The other side of it is still in Pittsburgh though, and I know we've talked about there are question marks with, who's their starting quarterback and all this. Do you feel the same way about Jalen Warren? Because now for this team, I feel like they're not done. I don't know if Jalen Warren is necessarily the RB1 going into the season. I think that they could again look at this draft and say, well, there's a really deep running back class here that we can go and get. But Najee Harris leaving, that vacates 299 touches in the Pittsburgh offense. So I want to be really, Adam, I want to be cautiously optimistic about Jalen Warren and think to myself that yeah, he's gonna have a good season, but I just feel like they're not done necessarily, but there is something here. Like there is a path to Jalen Warren having a pretty solid fantasy season in 2025.
Right now, yes, but I agree with you.
You
I
don't
don't
think
think
they're
they're
done?
done,
Yeah.
and yeah, and I think they're definitely going to add another running back. So that's why you have to temper expectations. I know for the last couple years, people have been clamoring for Jalen Warren to get more touches. He's more explosive. Why they giving Najee Harris the ball, and we know he can catch the football. So we've been waiting for this, but they are going to add someone. So that's why I have to wait a little bit. Obviously, if you're drafting now, you probably take them around RB 25 would be the area I
Yeah.
would say, but you have to understand that they're likely going to add someone else.
You mean you're not happy with who even Kenneth Gainwell, Cordell Patterson?
Oh yeah,
Come
that's right. They
on.
Kenneth Gainwell. Yeah, that's right. They
Come
added
on.
Gainwell.
That's it.
No,
Jalen Jalen Warren RB1 season. That's what we're hoping for. I agree. I do like it though. We'll just see how they move in the as they continue on in the offseason, what they do in the NFL draft, but far more excited for Najee Harris right now than I am with Jalen Warren. As always, appreciate everyone hanging out with us. fantasylife.com. That is where you can go see all of our articles that we've referenced today 100% free. We'll see you here next time.